hope you've had a beautiful day and a beautiful week. So today's topic is going to be about first symptoms and signs of corona. The video all of you have been waiting for. What signs and what symptoms did I first have within the first 2 weeks of having corona? So I work in the medical field, so at the beginning of the pandemic, I was already exposed to patients who were sick and staff who was beginning to become sick. And so as soon as I was aware of an actual pandemic and the virus, I started taking notes. I started writing down daily all my symptoms and signs and what I noticed about my body and how it felt, as well as my vitals. So I did this just in case I contracted it so that I would be able to share with others what actually happens and how it manifests. That entire week, before I manifested my first symptoms on that Friday, I was noticing that every time I went home from work, my body was so exhausted. I couldn't move for about 3 to 4 hours, and then I could finally eat and start doing my homework, but I was just so exhausted. It was different. I felt very different. And during the first few days before the symptoms started to really manifest, I would notice a few chills here and there. So every day that week I noticed I would get random chills and then I'd be okay. So I'm going to read off all the symptoms that I wrote down in my symptom corona diary from the beginning of the pandemic. And March 18th is when I started having chills, and then March 20th was when everything started to manifest. So the only side effect that I had when the virus had been in me was chills. I just would get random chills, and my temperature was 99.2 on Friday. And that Friday is when everything started. I woke up with a severe migraine, the worst one I had in a year. And then that night I had a stomach episode, which I hadn't had a stomach episode since Lyme treatment. And that's when I'm violently ill, my stomach is distended, really bad abdominal pain and nausea. And I just was shaking, and it was just awful. And Friday I started getting pain in my body, a little bit more sharp pain. Saturday and Sunday I woke up with my ears, my neck, and my throat hurting, and it wasn't so much as a throat burn, but more like a throat ache. The best way I can describe it is there's rocks in your throat. You know how a normal virus you feel like your throat is on fire? It wasn't that at all. It was actual rocks. It felt like rock pain was in my throat. And it was sharp ear pain and sharp neck pain. And then Sunday was another hard day. So Friday and Sunday were really rough that weekend. And I napped most of the day. And I don't nap during the day. I'm a very productive person. I don't make time for naps. And the only time I do nap is when I'm really sick. And so I knew something was off because I napped most of the day. I just kept going in and out of consciousness, and I still had my migraine. My vision was very weird. I saw weird things in my vision, lights. It was I was so sensitive to light, and it wasn't just a normal migraine type of sensitive to light. It was actual, I couldn't keep my eyes open. It was so bad. So it was everything was magnified. I started having headache and shortness of breath at night. My asthma started, so that's when I started using my inhaler. I had nausea throughout the day. It said no appetite when I did eat. So I forced myself to eat because of my diabetes, so I had no appetite. My blood sugars were stable up until 3 p.m., and that's when they started going higher, in the higher 100s. I had dry mouth and dry cough. Very small and mild dry cough. Then Monday, I was very dizzy. I had higher blood sugar, nausea. My vision was weird with spots. I had asthma at night, and then very few dry coughs on Monday. I felt feverish at work, but I was running around because I was the only MA there that week, except for the last day that the clinic was open. but I was only MA, so I was running back and forth for, at work, so I thought I was just overheated. But I felt cold too. I didn't have appetite, I had chills. And then Tuesday, my blood sugars started going up in the 300s, 307. Dry cough in the morning, here and there throughout the day. I had stomach pain and nausea. My nose started to become a little stuffy. So every day since day one, I had a migraine. So I had about 70-day migraine straight. There was no relief. And then, so Tuesday, I woke up at 3 a.m., unable to breathe. My chest felt heavy, and I was gasping for air. So that was my first time where I started to slowly gasp for air. And that next day is when our clinic closed. And during that time frame, that's when other staff members started getting sick. And I just had a feeling intuitively that it was inside of me. And so I think that was March 23rd, that day. And then the rest of that week, I just had the same symptoms, and it all stayed mild. So the thing that was just the weirdest out of everything was that I had high blood sugars and I couldn't breathe in the night. Like during the day, it was just a little like breathlessness, but during the nights, it started to get progressively a little bit rough. So that was the first 2 weeks of just basically mild symptoms, and those were all the symptoms I experienced. So those are just the first 2 weeks of symptoms, and those were just the mild symptoms. My symptoms completely transformed and manifested into something greater after that. And I'll be going over that in the next video so that you know what it actually was like to have more severe symptoms and what type of severe symptoms there were. There were a lot of symptoms that I experienced, and I was just fortunate that my last week at work, it was very mild, but I didn't know I had it. I thought it was allergies and a minor cold, and then that I was just having asthma problems. I didn't really put it together until some of the other staff also was sick before me. So yeah, it was very interesting. But yes, so those are the symptoms, and if you have any questions, just like, subscribe, and comment below, and I'm happy to answer your questions. I definitely do not miss having any of those symptoms. So after rereading them again, it makes me very happy and grateful that I am not where I was. Well, I hope you guys have a beautiful day, and thanks for listening. I hope that helps clarify some things for you guys, but those were my first 2 weeks of symptoms, and it was mainly mild. So right when it got in my body and when it just began to build up was when it was mild, and I was very grateful for that. So yeah, I will let you guys know on the next video what the most severe symptoms were, because after those first 2 weeks, it became severe and the symptoms were just out of this world. But I will share more with you on that tomorrow, and I hope you have a beautiful, beautiful night. Thank you for watching.